All right. You sit down for this one too. Love it. So, Kayla did an excellent job of talking about kind of how change happens. And change happens all the time. There's change that we ask for, there's change that comes on us and we have really no control over. And I think when we get really comfortable with change, reinventing yourself, or, handling life's interesting challenges, really helps give you the confidence that you can make it through something. So, Kayla is one of those people who loves structure. She loves a good spreadsheet. She loves a good, planner. And while I appreciate planners, I have typically most of my life hated structure and routines because I felt restricted and I felt like, well, I don't know what I'm going to want to eat this week. So I don't want to meal prep or plan or things like that because I don't know if I'm going to feel like eating what I planned. I don't know if I'm going to feel like working out. Well, this all changed for me when I had kids, because one thing you'll learn about kids is they like structure and routines. And I will never forget this one time where Kayla, bless her heart, was like in third or fourth grade. It was something like that. And she, came to me in pure, honest, like helpful Kayla fashion and was like, Mom, I have this idea. What if we put a monthly calendar on the fridge and you tell me, you will write all the meals of what it's going to be, kind of like at school. They have their lunch menu. We're going to have a dinner menu for the house. And she actually thought it was sweet, but she was basically showing me where things weren't going so well, in her opinion, right? Like, kids just want to know what to count on. And I started to understand this more and more, especially the more kids I got. And then the older they got, that if you were going to survive, for me, having 4 kids in 4 different schools, you had to have some sort of organization and structure in place or you would lose your mind. So I did eventually get on board with all of this and recognize that when I actually made a plan, nothing ever really goes according to plan, but at least having the plan and having things that, like, I'm really good at adjusting or adapting when things go off course, but at least having that initial, like, this is what we're going to be working on, created a lot of safety for the family. And I felt like I felt a little bit better in other areas of my life where I might have felt overwhelmed. And so, like laundry, for example, like the laundry was insane. And so when I made a plan, I'm going to do a load every day, all of a sudden I wasn't thinking about the laundry all the time. It's just something that I got in the habit of doing. So I just kind of wanted to start with that because a lot of you may love planning and a lot of you may actually not enjoy the planning process, but you enjoy the benefits of what planning can bring to your life. And it actually brings more freedom and more ability to do more. So give it a try. There's ways that you can loosely structure things. And so this isn't about planning every moment of your life all day long. I could never get on board with that, but in an area of my life where I was looking at working out every single day, I walked 4 miles every day for a year, and I would not say it had to be at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. I would say it could be at any time during the day, but it just had to happen every single day. And for me, that was enough structure at that time. Now I have more of a set structure. And so for me, it's like, I'm okay writing down times and stuff like that. But just to kind of look at the idea of, we're looking at changing our life, we have to kind of come up with some sort of a plan. And that's what's in the PDF freebie, is the morning routine and evening routine. And we have a couple of ways of looking at this, but you don't want to be, Kayla gave great examples about running a marathon. If you were to train running, but you could only run in circles and not like on a treadmill or outside going someplace, you would be doing a lot of work but not getting anywhere. You can't run a race without actually going, right? You can't just sit and run in circles. Like that's, it's work, but it's not the work of what we need to be doing. And so we want to be looking at these plans and routines that we're creating as a way to support your goals, but not get you exhausted doing things that don't matter. So when you look to change your life, you're going to have, a couple ways of looking at it. The first one is you might want to be finding relief. Honestly, that's where a lot of us start. It's not necessarily I'm going to go take over the world or take over, Wall Street. It's going to be, I need to get some relief in my life. And so we kind of want to look at that. Do you have a lot of areas in your life that stress you out? Do you have things that are, that come up for you that just, if you could just get some relief in this one area, things would calm down? No, it's not the ultimate fulfillment in your life, but it will get you to feeling a little bit better and a little bit better. And then you can take the next phase and the next phase, and you can start. I don't know about you, but I don't know who I am when I'm in burnout. Like I can't access the core of who I am when I'm in chronic stress. So perhaps getting relief is the place to start. And then others of you will know exactly what you want or have an idea of what you want. And you need to take that first phase or the next phase. Planning meals for the family is a full-time job. Exactly. Relief is where you start if you don't know who you are. Not me, I'm lost. We're all lost in some capacity. So I can relate to that. Okay. So on Kayla's call, some of the examples that people wanted to change were, for one, was to feel better in money. So if you want to feel better about money, you need to change your experience with money, right? If you want to feel better in your body, you have to change your experience with your body. And if you want to change how you feel about dating, let's say love's in the air and you want to start dating, but you haven't really had any good experience around it, you have to change your experience with love and dating, because confidence doesn't come, as Kayla mentioned, it doesn't come before you start. You don't get yourself all hyped up and feel really good and then you go on a date and it's amazing. It is a process of facing your fears, but you have to change the experience, and you have to, experience will become the evidence that your beliefs need in order to change. You can't feel better in your body with affirmations. And I know this is going to go against a lot of things that are out there, and sorry, but if you legit hate your body, telling yourself you love your body isn't, the opposite doesn't wash it out. Like that doesn't do anything for you because you honestly don't believe it. And so while words of affirmation are great, if all the evidence that you have is that every experience you've had in your body is just not great, then, or every evidence you have dealing with money is not great, you can't fake that you are fine with it if you aren't. And so this is kind of part of the process that we were talking about, where you kind of have to know where you're starting, and we have to be honest. And this is what I'm going to tell you. Most people think they're honest. Sometimes we know that maybe we're stretching a little bit or we're like exaggerating just a tiny bit. But I bet that if I were to ask you, anybody individually, you would tell me that you're very honest. This is your starting point. And you don't have those old beliefs anymore. And I understand why you feel that way and you say that, because I've been there. And I get very offended sometimes when somebody tells me that, gives me some truth that it's not what I thought. And this is what we have to work on my side of things, because we're not sitting here saying, I want to lie about where I am. We're in so much pain about where we're at that it's almost like we can't even face the reality of where we're at in order to, get movement. Any kind of a GPS that we work with has a starting point and an end point, right? You have to put in where you start. You have to say where you want to go. Otherwise, the GPS doesn't work. You can drive around with the little GPS map on, but don't put in coordinates, and it's just going to show you a lovely line of where you're at and where you're going. You can be going in circles. You can be going up and down. You can stop and not move at all. Like, the GPS isn't magic. It just is a tool that we use, but you have to know where you're currently at. There's a little thing on there that says current location. And if let's just say you want to go to New York City, you want to drive to New York City, and you recognize that you're in San Francisco, and you're like, I don't want to be in San Francisco because that's too long of a trip. So I'm going to say, or I'm going to believe that I'm actually closer than I think. I'm going to overestimate my where I'm at. And you're going to say, I'm actually in Colorado, because Colorado's, it's not that I could get to Colorado pretty easy. That's not, too far, but your GPS will not work with Colorado coordinates as your starting point. If you are in San Francisco, it is going to give you a turn by turn to nowhere, because it can't calculate, you are not in Colorado. And so it's not going to work. And I think this is where we get very frustrated in planning things, because this is what I hear all the time. And believe it or not, these words have come out of my mouth probably more times than I would like to admit. I think I've lived decades in this phrase, but I'm working so hard and I'm not getting anywhere. It's not working for me. And I have this belief that goes on that says, for some reason, when that person puts the plan together and does the work, she gets results, but I don't. Her body looks great after 2 years. Mine still looks the same. So either coordinates are wrong, we're not admitting where we're at, and truly just looking at where we're starting is just a data point in a GPS system and not some sort of personality flaw. Or we are starting and stopping all the time. I'm going to work on water. And then, I just can't seem to get my water in. Okay, now I'm going to work on movement. Okay, we're going to work on movement for a while. And now I'm going to work on, I don't like the movement. Yeah. So now I'm going to work on food. Oh shit, food's really hard and prepping sucks. Okay, back to water. I'm doing a lot of action steps and taking a lot of things, but I'm not actually getting anywhere. I'm not getting results because I'm not committing to anything for a long enough time to actually get those results that I want. So you can have the perfect directions from the restaurant to your friend's house, but if you don't know how to get to your friend's house first, you don't have the perfect directions. Yeah. Yeah. Had a broken scale that I used to keep in the house because it made me feel better. Can I borrow it? Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. That another way of looking at this is not even a broken scale. How about no scale? You want changes in your body, but you're not willing to step on the scale. And that's, you don't know where you're starting. There's a lot of times too, where if you haven't stepped on a scale in a couple of years and you're, guesstimating where you're at, and then you get on that sucker and you're just like, that was too much truth for me. And so I'm going to go hide in a hole for a while. And it's almost too much, reality for us in that moment. So I don't honestly think that most people lie on purpose. I honestly feel like a lot of the untruth that we're covering, the false beliefs and things like that, are very hidden and deep down, and they're not actually in our forefront where we're saying, I'm going to straight out lie to you about where I'm at. So when we talk about getting honest, it's not personality flaw honest, you're a chronic liar. It's more about we have lots of defense mechanisms in place to help us not see that truth because it's too painful. And so what we do is we hide behind these things, you know, these false things, but it's not an actual lie. My driver's license weight, they don't make you change it every year. My driver's license weight is legit the same as like before Kayla. Like, so there you go. Like, it has not changed the whole entire time. I did, however, change my eyes because I put hazel because I thought I had hazel eyes, and I don't actually have hazel eyes. I have blue eyes, but I have those weird kind that change colors all the time. And so I thought I had green eyes because everyone always says I have green eyes, and I thought hazel was green, but it's not. So I did finally change it to say blue eyes, but it's funny because I didn't touch the weight. Left that there. Anyway, I'm not trying to lie to the DMV. I just don't want to have to actually write down what my current, and because if I haven't weighed myself in a couple of years, I honestly don't really know. So I'm guesstimating anyway. Let's just, you know, let's lie by omission. We just don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe that is where I'm at. So you changed your eye color this time, changed from blue to gray. Interesting. Yeah, exactly. It's funny the things that we can be honest about. Like eye color is probably one of those things where we're like, no problem, right? That doesn't define my personality. But weight, for some reason, is this thing that defines us. And it's like you have, there's this certain weight that you're either acceptable or not acceptable or whatever. We have a lot of judgments around weight and lots of things in life, but weight happens to be one of those things that we don't want to look at because it's the thing that brings a lot of judgment. And we don't just look at it as like numbers. We look at it as like somehow this means something about who I am on the inside. This tells people more than I want them to know, right? About me, kind of thing. So the honest here is different because it isn't necessarily a lie. Sometimes we do lie because we just don't feel safe and we lie, and that happens. But it's more about an incorrect belief. And so when we're fueled by, let's just take the weight thing again on the DMV. If you're fueled by, if I actually have to change that, say if I'm not changing it, all I have to say is I didn't change it. But if I, go to like answer that question, then I have to say, well, what do I weigh now? And then I'm looking at, 10 years since and what's happened in the 10, right? It's like emotions and memories and, judgment. And so it's the belief of what that number means is what keeps me from being really honest about it. So that's what we work on this side. And the accountability is like really getting honest. There are times when people aren't getting results. So what I want to do is I want you to get results. That's my goal. Kayla wants you to have the plan that gets you the results. And I want to, as you start working your plan, I want to help you get results. And not only that, if you get stuck, I want to help you find the quickest way out to get to the other side to get the results. We don't see the weight. We see what the weight is holding us back from and feel failure. There's so much. There's just so much. And it's not bad or wrong to not be able to look at this. But in getting honest, we have to recognize if we're not getting results, there's something else going on. Because if you do A and B and C and D, you will get the result. It's just what it is. If you save money, you will eventually have a savings, right? If you decide to eat non-processed foods and start movement, you will see results. It's not, we understand this part, but what happens is if we're not getting the results, then there's something in the way that's stopping you from being consistent. Because consistency, you'll see the result. And most of us don't understand that we're not being consistent because we're doing all this work, right? And so we don't understand that I'm actually not doing the same thing that I need to be doing every day in a consistent fashion for 30 to 90 days in a row to change this habit, right? Most of us don't like that answer. It's hard to wait in the process of getting results. So if you are not getting results, there's something else going on. And that's what I try to do, is I want to come in and I want to help figure out what's in the way. A lot of times it's because you want it all. And don't we all want it all? Like, I understand this. I'm the same way. I want the body, the money, the career, the purpose, the passion, right? I want it all. Wanting it all isn't bad. But not only do we want it all, this one might hurt a little bit, and I'm really sorry about that, but I promise it's going to get better. Not only do we want it all, but we want this crappy thing that we're holding on to that doesn't actually feel good or support our life, and we want to bring that with us to our result. So let me explain this a little bit more for you. I want to move to San Francisco. I want to find the love of my life, and I mean true love, not the fake kind. I want true love. And I want a home, and I want to have a big enough home that's like so big where all my kids can come and, hang out. And I want to, never worry about money. And I just want this beautiful dream in San Francisco because I love San Francisco. That's a version of wanting it all. And I'm not talking wanting everything I've ever wanted in my life, but in this version, I want, let's say I'm in a relationship, but the guy hates San Francisco, never wants to be there. But I want him to come to San Francisco and live with me there because this is my dream, right? I want to live in San Francisco. I don't want to let go of the guy. I want that guy who hates San Francisco and swears he will never live there to go with me to San Francisco, live. He also makes $100,000 a year. I make $100,000 a year. Let's just say, for hypotheticals. I don't know if you know about San Francisco, but it surpassed New York City. It is a very, very expensive place to live. $200,000 a year will get you nothing. When I say this, I mean this. You cannot buy shit in San Francisco with that income. In other places of the world you can, but do you see how in your mind you're taking 80 dreams, shoving them into one, and you're saying, I could live in the middle of the United States and own a home and, have the big, huge estate where people can come and all of that. But I want to take that version and I want to plop it in San Francisco. By the way, there aren't big properties in San Francisco. You can't have a farm there. You can't have horses. You can't have big estates. Like it's not going to happen. And if you decide you want to go over the bridge to Mill Valley and up into, San Ramon or, those kind of areas, you're not in San Francisco. You're out of the area. So I get really defensive because, I didn't say I wanted to live in San Ramon. I said I wanted to live in San Francisco. I want to live in San Francisco. I don't want to let go of my guy. I don't want to get a different job. And I, want, all this stuff that can't happen at the same time. So, and do I want to spend the next 40 years developing the income, the wealth, the strategy, the process for me to be able to make this dream? I don't know about you, but I don't want to wait 40 years for that. And this is the honesty that we have to kind of come to, is that we have to look at what are we really wanting? I want closeness with family. Well, I love my San Francisco views, but they come at a cost. And the cost is going to keep me from my family for 40 years. So I need to create something that will feel better now. And not that I ever have to give up on San Francisco, but I have to recognize that in my current state, San Francisco is 40 to 90 years away. And I'm not kidding about that. Like, you need to have bazillions, right? And it's like, so you need time creating that kind of wealth. And is that really, truly what you want? I think a lot of us want this jet lifestyle. Do you know what it takes to maintain, first of all, a jet? I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to have to worry about, hey, we have to go service your plane and it's going to cost $250,000 this quarter, right? Yeah, exactly. We need to prioritize. You do? Yeah. Go for it. Yeah. So yacht lifestyles are awesome. That's a great idea in theory. But are you willing to give up certain parts of your dream to focus on just this thing? If you don't want love, you can marry for money, right? You can't, there's all kinds of ways that you can get this dream, but you can't have it all holding on to your old stuff, walking through the door into this new place and demand that, why am I not getting my results, right? So we have to understand what it is, who are we today, and what do we really want? Because the reality is, if I had to prioritize in a list of what was important to me, family would be top. San Francisco would be bottom. And so I have to realize that perhaps there's another area that can be just as pleasing to me in different ways, right? That will accommodate the lifestyle that I'm looking for and not require 40 to 90 years to get there. And it's that kind of honesty where we're like, well, I want true love. We get this a lot. I want true love. He needs to be tall, like really tall. He needs to be what we call a TDH, tall, dark, and handsome. He needs to have, what else? The perfect career and, live in a city, dress really nice, never be, without something to, he's just always got the answers and stuff like that. Well, first of all, this type of human being doesn't exist with emotion. So if you're looking for depth and to feel love and emotion, then we're going to have to, perhaps he's not going to be tall, right? Like we just want it all, and we want it all today or right now or as soon as possible. And the reality is we have to kind of get honest about, how do you want to feel in your life? How do you want to, this is when we want to talk about feelings, right? Is in this area. What do you want to feel and experience? Because you're looking at a thing and an end result that is actually very different. The reason why I say this is Kayla and I and Jessica were in San Francisco 2 days ago. Let me just tell you what happened. There was massive traffic. We were super late to my appointment because we left an hour and a half early, but it wasn't enough for, a 30-minute drive. It wasn't enough. And so we were an hour and a half, on the road and still late. We get to San Francisco, and guess what there is in San Francisco? There's no parking. There's never any parking. And so it was a very frustrating kind of experience. Kayla was walking to go put money down on something that she had to do where she's getting married, and legit, people were doing drugs where they actually watched the needle and all this stuff going on in front of them. And Jessica's just like, what the hell is this, man? We were just going to go look at the thing, but City Hall's in the Tenderloin and this kind of stuff happens. And then a man pulled down his pants and took a shit right in front of them. Like legit. And we think of San Francisco or whatever dream place we're going to, and we don't see shit on the sidewalks or drugs or, things like that. We see this big estate and how we're going to feel all these amazing things. And it's like, there's no traffic and, it's just ease, and it doesn't cost a lot to live there. And right. It's like, it's great to dream and Pinterest things. It's great. But then there comes a time where we have to say priority. What is the thing that you want to feel the most? And sometimes it's going to be relief. And sometimes it's going to be, I really want this other thing. I want my family, or I want a home really bad. And it's like, we have to make decisions and look at timelines according to, what is the cost? Do I really want to put in 40 years for this thing? And some things are worth 40 years, by the way. I want grandkids, totally worth putting in 40 years, right? I've been doing the work. I had kids, I raised them, I'm just waiting. Like that was worth the 40 years, right? Like totally worth it. I'm still like in the 30-year range or whatever, but still like totally worth it. But a 40-year goal isn't, I don't think about how am I going to be a grandma every day for 40 years, right? There's things that I have to do and experiences that I want to have. I don't just want to wait for the grandma phase, or I don't want to just wait for the grandma phase, right? I don't want to just wait for San Francisco. I can't be happy until I have San Francisco. That's it. I refuse to accept anything less than San Francisco, and only the San Francisco that exists in my mind, not the actual one where people, take dumps on the sidewalk and, there's no parking and there's traffic. I don't want that San Francisco. I want this San Francisco that's really awesome and whatever version I've dreamed of. I saw someone take down their pants and poop on the street next to the car at the stoplight. Yep. I lived in New York City and it was never that bad. Lifestyle, not location. I don't think that I've experienced that in LA, although maybe have seen people peeing on the sidewalk. Yeah. And clearly you don't live in an area of LA where that is your daily experience, but I know there are. I know in the financial districts there are, right? So same with New York City. Like there are places where that is, maybe not quite as bad as San Francisco. They've got a real problem right now, but understanding and getting honest isn't just thinking about, well, I only want this one thing and I want it the way you have to be able to prioritize. You also have to be able to be the priority in your life. And this is where I see a lot of people fall off because they want something for themselves so bad, but literally in every area of their life, they're taking care of, accommodating, or doing something for someone else. And that will always win out if you don't make some changes. You can't, this is another version of wanting it all. I want to still accommodate everybody and I don't want to have any hard conversations and I don't want to disappoint anybody and I want everyone to be okay. And I want this cool thing in my life and that's going to take a lot of time and, somehow magically more time appears in my life. If we're not the priority and we aren't first on the list, it doesn't matter if you have the perfect plan. It won't help because you are always going to be taking care of somebody else. And let me tell you, it is exhausting never being the priority in your life because you get to the end of the day and the last thing you want to do is go put your running shoes on and go outside and run. Like you legit are so exhausted from life and everybody that's taken from you that you don't have it in you. It's not even character flaw. It is legit. You have no energy and no ability to push yourself to do that task that you need to do for yourself. And I think a lot of us go through life where it's like, well, when I get everything done and everybody gets okay and all my kids are fine or the work's good, then I will da, 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 da. I'm here to tell you, I've been a parent for 32 years, a little bit more. Just over 32 years, or around 32. The kids never have it all together. It doesn't matter because guess what? They're growing and evolving too, and they're creating change in their lives. And it's like, it's hard as a mom to watch your kids, be in painful moments or things like that. Nobody ever has it all together. And so I'm waiting for this mystical land of everybody being happy and then it's my turn. It isn't real. It's a lie. It's not real. So whether it's priority in what we actually want to start on, you can't start on it all. You need to pick a thing. Whether it's we're not priority or we're just not really clear on what our starting point is. We actually were wishing, hoping, and believing that we were actually, in Colorado and not San Francisco. And that's a bummer when you realize that, you're further away. But what does knowing where you actually are starting, what does that actually do to your mind and to your soul when you're about to embark on change? It brings relief. And it doesn't seem like relief because it sucks to face the reality of things. However, how many of you are constantly wondering where you're at? Like it takes a lot of mind stuff to go, well, I don't know if I need to lose 10 pounds or 80 pounds. Like, I don't know if I need to, you know, get a new job. I don't know if this guy is good or not good. Like, I don't know. Like, we spend so much time processing where we're at. We all want the friend who tells us there's something in our teeth. Yes, that's a good point. So if we are brave enough to get on that scale, it might suck for a minute and it might sting to feel like, dang, I'm a little bit further. It doesn't have to be the scale. I'm using the scale on this, but it's just the scale is easy to measure, you know, where other things in our life are a little bit harder. Then now you know, and you don't have to wonder anymore. And now you can actually create a plan for where you're at. And now you're not wasting time, you know, if you haven't run ever and you pick a race plan that says you've been running 3 miles every day for 6 months, that run, when you're on the couch, you need a couch to 5K plan, right? You need a couch to 25K plan, whatever it is that you want to do. You can't go from experienced runner and run side by side with those people. It's too painful. It's too hard. It's too big of a stretch. And so sometimes just embracing the fact that you're in your group, go into the accurate pace group that you should be in. Like if you're a slow runner, embrace that and work on getting faster. But it feels so much better to not beat yourself up because you're so flawed that you can't keep up with these racers. They've been doing this for a long time. So we got to put in the work, but we got to know where we're starting and to actually accept the starting point. Phase of life. When I was a mom with little kids, I was not running a business. Like I was working, I was a single mom, man. I needed a job with security and a paycheck that I could count on every single week because did I mention that kids like structure and safety and stability and all those things at the beginning of the call? They want to know not only what their meals are, but when their meals are, right? They want to know, like, when the fridge starts getting bare, that there's going to be more food in the fridge. They want to know, like, how am I getting to school or how are we getting the supplies? Like, I needed safety more than I needed my purpose and, you know, whatever. So we want to get honest. Priority, the 2 ways, the starting point, the phase in life. The other thing that happens is that what I talked about, we're doing all the work, but not the work. It is to stop getting out of the start-stop or the picking plans that won't ever get you anywhere. You're going to be doing a lot of work, but not the work. Fear is the unknown. The other thing that happens is we haven't really committed to anything. We're just trying all the time. And I know Kayla talked about this on her call. We think we've committed, but most of us are commitment phobic. Like cell phone plans is where I really get trapped because I've had my cell phone for how many years, but every time we go to renew it, I'm just like, well, but what if I don't want this phone for the next 2 years, right? It's just like, there's something in my mind that says, but what if I change my mind? What if I don't want to be locked into a contract? And so I think a lot of us fear commitment and fear committing to something. And then how do we get out of this? For instance, Facebook declarations, right? That's a commitment. But if you kind of fade out of just don't mention it very much, and maybe no one will catch that you're not doing that thing anymore. But if the phone plan doesn't want me, then I want them forever. That is so true. I got my monthly cell plan this last time. That's funny, right? Because you just never know. What if, things change and I don't want this anymore? I love that. That is true, Kayla. As soon as your cell phone says, I don't want you, all of a sudden we're like, what can I do to make this better? All right. So there's lots of reasons that we can stop and get stuck, right, in the movement. So I've talked about some of them. These are things that I've talked about that can happen ahead of your plan, like before you actually take a lot of steps in action. I have this 90-day makeover group that I absolutely love because I know how hard it is to commit to something and stay actually in consistency for 30 days, let alone 90 days. Like, it is tough. But let me tell you why I love the 90-day makeover experience. This is where you find out really what's going on, because you can hypothetically imagine the blocks that you're going to have in your life, but I'll tell you what, they don't come through until after week 3. When you are in daily consistent movement, you will be surprised at what comes forward. So this is what happens, and I've seen this in the group, and everybody was falling apart, and then they kind of get back together. It's interesting to watch people. There are legit, like, no kidding, week 3, there is something in week 3. Like, people fall apart because the newness is worn off, and now you're faced with reality and truth, and it's sometimes hard to look at, but it also gives you clues as to what's going on in your life that's always held you back in every other area. So I love this, because if you want to get massive movement in your life, figure out what these things are and heal them in one area or work on them, right? And then you can take that confidence that you got here and apply it into other areas. So here's what happens when you commit to something for 90 days and you legit are committed and not just commitment phobic saying you're committed, right? This isn't we're in a committed relationship, but I don't want to declare on Facebook, right? When we're committed, we declare on Facebook. We legit change our title and right? We're in it to figure this out. So that's commitment. When you not only say you're going to do it, but you actually demonstrate it in some way. That is what I told Nick. That's so funny. That's not commitment until you're Facebook official, right? That's like, come on now, because nobody wants to be Facebook official and then take it back right away, because then you look crazy, right? So here's what you find out. You find out you need more time. You thought you could get your result in 90 days or less. I'm going to lose 80 pounds in 90 days, right? And everybody can tell you that's not possible or not even healthy, but it won't matter, because in your mind, you believe that you can't be happy until you get this goal and you need it yesterday. And so the only way you can be happy is to go from a size 24 to a 2 in 90 days. That's it. That is the only way you will accept your reward, right? So in this process of doing the work every day, you find out, crap, I need more time. It's not going to happen in 90 days. And you start to accept more, right? You start to realize that, man, this is a lot of work. The other thing that comes up is you want a different result. You don't actually want the thing you started. I can't even tell you how many times people start and at week 3 or 4, they're like, I honestly don't want this. I thought I did, but I honestly don't want this. And so instead of quitting, we create a new plan, right? We create it. What is the new result that you actually want? Because you're convinced for so long. How many times have we trying to go after these goals? And I think part of us are trying to make up for this, like, I didn't get it for 5 years, so I have to get this before I can move on. And the reality is some dreams are meant to die, man. Let it go. Like, you don't need that result. Let it go. Keep going. Like, don't worry about it. But when you start doing the work for it, you realize this actually doesn't even make me happy. I honestly don't want this. It doesn't matter if we're working on our body. It doesn't matter if we're working on, healing our burnout. It doesn't matter if we're working on money or career. Everybody comes to us and says they hate their job. Every single person, that is the first thing they want to change, because they can't look at their relationship. They can't look at something else that's going on in their life that's holding them back. So in their mind, it's the job. And then when we start working on getting results on the job, they recognize, like, oh, it's not actually the job, because the next job is the same thing. And the next job is the same thing. Like, I'm just as lonely, or nobody likes me and everywhere I go. So there's something else going on and some other thing that you need. And so the result needs to change, the desire, what you're working towards. The other thing that comes up is you recognize you don't know who you are. you had this idea about yourself that was really good, that helped you get through a really painful time, but you actually don't know who you are. And it's clear because Kayla running a race is not who she is. She wanted to do something with me and to help me get to my goal. And so she thought, well, if I help mom by doing this thing, yes, it was also the road trip to Vancouver, right, or the flight, but it was like, when she finally became clear on who she was, what did she say? I'll come join and support, and I'll like clap and I'll do all that stuff, but I am not going to put that much effort into something that I actually don't like at all. And not that Kayla's run since then, but that kind of running is just not her style. The other thing that happens is the old beliefs you thought were gone have surfaced. You run for cardio. So we all think, and I know this is a common experience, especially in the 90-day experience, I thought I was over that. Why is this old thing coming back up again? Like, I thought we figured this out. We put that down. It's gone. You may have put down the person that hurt you or the experience that happened, but the belief you picked up in that experience, it's still there. And so now you have this other new experience, this other new belief that you're like, no, I am worthy of all this effort and I will be the priority. And then you have this old belief that says, you know, if I don't make people happy, no one's going to like me. And so you've got, I'm the priority and I'm the accommodator, all fighting for the front space in your mind. And who's going to win? The one that has the most evidence. And typically, old belief, you've been collecting for years, right? You've been collecting evidence for years. And so this tug of war doesn't have a chance until we start getting evidence on this side and we stop looking for evidence in the old belief. This is the stuff that comes forward. But guess what? How do you navigate that on your own? Because in your mind, you hear all kinds of different things like, well, I'm so over that. It's not him that I'm upset about. It's my job. Like we always go back to the job. Let me just tell you, that is the best place to go. If you can't answer the question, it's the job. So those beliefs come up and you need somebody who can help you see what that old belief is. I still need this. Like, I would think that I've been working on this for a really long time. And as I start to evolve and grow and reinvent myself, dang, if something new doesn't come up and, some old belief that I thought I don't even think about that person anymore. It doesn't matter about the actual person or the event that happened. It's what did you decide that you were going to believe about how the world was in that moment. For instance, I'm never going to find love. And so it may be this quiet little thought that's in the back of your mind, but it's a belief and you've been collecting evidence for years. And so when you try to go on those dates, what happens? You're bumping up against this, thing. And so it's hard to see that when you're in it. But in the movement, this stuff comes up. The commitment is easy, but it's hard to implement. So you're not really committing, you're trying. This comes up, where you're not really in it. You're just going through the motions until it gets too hard. And then you're like, I'm going to pick something else, like new phase. And so this isn't where you make a decision that you're really focused on the wrong thing and you really need a new plan. This is where you're like, it's really hard. And when things get hard, I bail. This is a very different, not committing, trying thing. It is, I leave, I abandon myself when things get too hard. And so this comes up a lot. The next thing, that you're in a phase of life that your big dream can't support yet, that you are not the priority in your life in every area. This is one of the big ones for me that I found. So many people come in, especially when they're working on their body and they just want to jump into like training and all this kind of stuff. And then they find out they're in burnout and they're shocked. Like, what? Burnout? That's like for, wait, my career, I do hate my career. Maybe I am in burnout. Like we have these beliefs about what burnout is, but if you've been in fight or flight and haven't healed a certain trauma, you never get off the clock. And you know what chronic trauma or chronic stress does and fight or flight? It burns you out. You're in burnout. Your adrenals are fatigued. Your metabolism's all, wackadoodle. And it's not bad. It's just that is a normal reaction to chronic stress. So we can't go train for a marathon when we're in burnout. We need to focus on how can we get the chronic stress reduced so that we have our energy back, and then we can go train for a marathon, right? It's getting the order correct. You realize that you struggle with perfection and you cannot keep your word to yourself because you can't maintain perfection every day. And I see this a lot. When people have to email me every day what they did, you're looking at truth, right? And if you can't write, if you're in perfection and you can't write that you did every single thing that you said you were going to do that day, all your morning routines, your evening routines, your lists, your routine, all that stuff, you hide. And you don't want to send an email that says, I had a rough day and I couldn't do it. And so we recognize that perfection is maybe something that's holding you back in your life. You see how much effort you actually have to put in daily to something. That's something that comes forward. People, you are used to putting, for the most part, you're used to putting tons of effort into accommodating other people. But when it comes to effort for yourself, it's like, whoa, I'm not used to working this hard in this area. And so we get kind of caught off guard by the amount of effort. We look at results just like San Francisco and we say, 30 minutes a day, I should get there in, 90 days, no problem. This is why my kids have everything. Kids probably are I love my kids, and I do a really good job now of balancing between their needs and my needs. But in the beginning, it was quite a dance because I thought I was struggling with perfection. I thought the perfect mom takes care of all their needs, and they dressed better than me. They looked better than me. They ate better than me. And no kid wants to see their mom sacrifice all that and then have it themselves. It's just a weird thing. So yeah. You will see how you fight your mind all the time. When you commit to something for 30 or 90 to 90 days, you will see how much your mind just sabotages the crap out of you. I told you in the beginning that you need to feel everything. What do you want? What do you want to experience? You want to feel into that. When you start your 30 to 90 day commitments, you can't take your feelings into consideration. They become just a side note, because you're going to feel all kinds of things. Your mind, you can't worry about what your mind's thinking because your mind's going to be telling you all kinds of stuff. You make the commitment and you do the daily activities despite how you feel and despite what your mind says, because you will be fighting it until your mind gets on board. Your brain starts to get used to the changes. You give up easily and hide when you don't think you can do it. And here's another one. You stay in research mode and plan for 90 days and struggle picking something. And this can have a lot to do with you don't know who you are. It can also have to do with so many, other, it can have a lot of different components that feed into this. But the reality is that it doesn't matter what you pick, and you don't understand that until you're actually in the daily action steps. When you get to that point, eventually you catch on that it honestly doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm building confidence in my consistency, and that's what I need to be doing. The other thing that you won't realize that will come forward is you get to start feeling all the feelings that you were burying for a lifetime, and it confuses and scares you. So if you're saying, oh, I really want to feel good in money, guess what's going to happen when you start taking daily action in money? Every money fear you've ever had is going to come forward, and the feelings and all and you're going to be overwhelmed and confused because you think it's actually how you're feeling, and it's not. But we stuff a lot, and when we start getting into movement, we start moving through things, our emotions and things that we were stuffing will come forward. They just need to come forward and leave. They don't need any processing. And I think we start processing how we're feeling every moment, and we get off track. And I said this before, week 3 is when all this stuff we start to unravel. This is where you have to come to a choice. This is, I believe, where the true commitment comes in, where you say, I'm either going to give up or I'm going to go forward, even though I recognize how hard this is. So honestly, in my mind, week 3 is where you actually commit to what it is that you're doing. You're pretty much trying until you recognize how hard it is. And then you come to the actual choice and commitment. And looking for daily routines. So we've talked a lot about the free PDF, and Kayla's been talking about the routines and stuff like that. You want to look for what you want. So we've been talking a lot about that, but you also want to break your desires down into phases, and each phase will need a morning routine and an evening routine that supports it. So for me, when I'm looking at getting healthy, I have to take it in phases. Right now, I was healing insomnia, burnout, things like that. Totally fine. But my routines in those early morning and evening routines to support me kind of getting more healing in my body are very different than routines that I would have in other stages of working on my body. So I have to know where I'm at. And when I recognize that this is where I'm at, my morning routine isn't going to be to get up at 5 a.m. every day. That's not going to be what helps me if I'm not getting sleep. I have to work on shutting down sooner. And so my evening routine is going to be very important. My morning routine, I have to lessen the load in the morning so I'm not so stressed right out the gate, because what have I done? I've set myself up for another stressful day. Bam, stressful sleep, insomnia, and the cycle continues. So you want to look at what your goal is, but then also what's the first phase. And when you're looking at setting up your morning and evening routines, that's in the PDF, you want to look at, if I were going to commit to something for 30 days, what's the very first phase of this? What do I need to do? And what are some things I can implement in the morning and the evening? What are some action steps that I can take every day? And that's what I would commit to. I had to find other ways to find evidence that I was healing my body besides, I can't jump on a scale for insomnia, right? There is no scale. So what I have to do is I have to look at other ways of feedback. How is my digestion? How is my thoughts and focus? Am I able to focus? What is the ratio of nights that I'm sleeping versus nights that I'm caught staying up? I start looking at ratio instead of perfection, right? I'm looking at, is it changing even a little bit? And so I track. This is where you want to have a whole month calendar out, not just even the habit tracker, but a whole month calendar where you're like, what are my moods? What is my cycles? What is, all that kind of stuff. When I'm looking at healing something like sleep, I have to look at more than how many minutes I slept, because that's not going to give me enough information as to if I'm actually healing this or not. I also went into the doctor and looked at, do I have sleep apnea? Do I have this? Do I have that? And I wanted to have that kind of information so I could stop my brain from saying, you can't sleep because you've got all these things. And then when you find out the doctor says you don't have all these things, you're like, okay, so now I'm back to daily steps, right? Like it helps you get, focused again on that. But when I look at the ratio of, wow, I had a really stressful day, I couldn't sleep that night, you start to put the patterns together on what's going on. So for you, this is where you just have to try. Is it about this that you were talking about that? Oh, okay. That was earlier. Sorry. So not only do I track daily activities, but I also want to keep a track on what's going on in my life and what's the ratio of sleep that I'm getting. Hey, I had 3 or 4 nights this month where I didn't sleep. The rest, I slept like a baby. We're doing really good from not sleeping at all, right? And so that kind of stuff gives me the feedback that I need to keep me going, because insomnia is not something that you can heal quickly. Burnout isn't something that you can heal quickly. If you are looking at changing your body in any way, shape, or form, it's a process. And your body has lots of different things that it's going to react to and stay stuck in. And so we have to find other things that we can feel good about, the benchmarks, right? The goals that we set. I personally like to start with the body because it's something that nobody else can control. I mean, we think other people can control it, but truly nobody else can control it. I get to say what I drink, what I eat, right? I get to, do that. And the feedback that I get on my body, it's like nobody else can tell me like, you can't do this or you can't do that. Like I'm the one that's really ultimately in charge of like, what are my daily action steps with, I may have responsibilities and those kinds of things, but ultimately, it's easy for me to track, where if it's like a job, there's a lot of people that get involved in that. So it's a little bit harder to get the feedback on that. So typically, I mean, it doesn't even have to be about changing your body, like losing weight. It can just be, I want to feel more energized in the morning and have more focus, and I want to have more, but coming up with something that you can do for the next 30 days that makes you feel like you're doing something towards a goal that you actually want, like towards your desire that you actually want. So, yeah. I gave an example here because earlier on Kayla's call, they talked about money coming up. And when sabotage comes up in money, you want to ask yourself, what old beliefs haunt you in money? What are you doing daily in money to take steps in courage? The most common phrase I hear in money is clients never ever have to worry about money again. And that isn't possible. So the human experience is always going to be about money, right? Things cost money. It just is what it is. And the more you make, the more responsibility you have. So perhaps if I were looking at a routine in money, right, to feel better in money, if I were to look at that, perhaps what I need is to feel better about my experience in money and see what patterns come up and hold me back. Then take that confidence and you can build more money in the area. So for instance, I'm going to have to get really good at looking at what my money situation is. And I may have to take that in steps. I may have to take a step every day in courage where it's like checking out scores, right? Checking out banks, looking at, credit cards, looking at budget and how I spend my money. It doesn't necessarily have to be even doing anything other than looking at it and getting a clear picture of what your money is. Sometimes we have a pre-phase before we have a phase, right? And so to get different money experiences, you have to be willing to first look at it, but you also need the support who is good at money that isn't going to judge me, right? And make me feel like crap for exploring this topic, because that's not what we need, is more judgment. But I would say that you would want to go to somebody who's actually not afraid of money and is fine with money. And then you go and you start to explore things and take steps. A money advisor is really good at giving daily steps into something that you can do towards money. And if you can find somebody who you feel comfortable with and just start exploring a little bit each time, that 30 days, you're going to feel a little bit different about money than when you started. And then the next 30 days, you focus on a little bit more. You can't wait until you have money so you can go into a financial advisor and say, here's my millions, figure it out. Like you want somebody who's helping you plan things, but you also can't go into a financial planner and have no money, no budget. Like you can't plan a budget if there's no money. Right? So it's like complicated. So we have to get into what are some good things that we can start getting comfortable looking at this, and then finding experts that can help us be accountable in our money goals. Because let me just tell you, you will never, ever not worry about money. It doesn't matter how much you have or don't have. Honestly, I feel like the times where I've been the leanest in money were the least stressful, even though it was stressful about how are we going to buy things, but it was the least stressful as when you start making it. And then you're like, well, crap, how can I maximize what I'm making so I don't have to spend so much? It's just, you will never, ever be out of worrying about money. It is what we have in this human experience. So if I were, because that was brought up on the call today, money, if I were looking at money, I would be looking at how can I get support in money that I don't feel like a guide that has no judgment about money or feels really good about money. And it's just a number and a tool that we use to get what we want, to create some safety and some ability to look at it where you have support looking at it. Because I mean, nothing's scarier than feeling like getting on the bank, talking to somebody when you feel like that person is judging your ever loving soul because you have to call them for this thing. And then, I hear from Kayla and she's like, oh, the bank people, they don't care about anything. They honestly don't care whether you got $2 or, 2 million, they don't care. And they're bouncing their checks just like, everybody else is. And you're just like, wait, what? Like, we don't think that because we have old beliefs around money that tell us this is a character flaw in me. It's just, maybe you're not good with money, but you're good in so many other areas. And so why not get help in the money area? So that's just one way I would be looking at making routines around feeling better about money. And instead of looking at how can I get out of this bad feeling, say, how can I get more experiences feeling better in money, and start there instead of like the client that Kayla brought up that was like, I'm going to, get divorced if this business doesn't make money, month one out the gate. And it's like, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a business make money month one out of the gate. Like, it's just, that's not how it works. So I should look for the relief I need first. I am feeling like I want to change it all, but I know I shouldn't. But everything feels like relief. Totally. I'm a big believer in getting relief because relief isn't happiness. So let me just say this right now. Relief will not make you happy. But let me just tell you, don't underestimate the benefits of feeling relief. Like, it feels really good to not have to worry about something so badly and to start to make changes in this area that's going to feel better and better and better. So relief, honestly, that's where I start even when I take coaching clients. What is the thing that impacts you the most right now? What is the thing that is hurting the most? Because when we get relief, then we tend to have more energy and we tend to have more ability to think about things. And then we're like, you know what? I actually do want this thing. I want to go back to school. I told myself I didn't want to go back to school because I'm stressing about money so bad, but I honestly really do want to go back to school. And so as you get relief, your true desires can come forward, and then it kind of guides the next phases, which we're always going to be in phases, and get used to this because you're always going to be changing. So I wish I could tell you differently, but we always want something more. We just do. Like, this feels really good, but I'll tell you what, in 6 months, I'm going to be like, I want something else. And we should. Like, that's not a bad thing. But it's also important for us to recognize that we need to get consistent in something small, even though that feels like a wah-wah, right? But that consistency is what builds momentum. And then you start tracking and adding and stacking your stuff. And this is how we do it. Like, I can't even believe some of the stuff that Kayla and I have done. Even my girls, like, I look at my girls and like, I don't even know who Elizabeth is right now. I'm like, what? Wait, what? Like, what she's done in this last year, but it didn't start with all the things. It started with these little tiny things that she did. And then all of a sudden she got more confident. And when you get confident in one area, guess what happens? You freaking get confident in other areas. Like, it doesn't just, we think so linear, like, oh, well, I can only work on this and then I'm going to work on this. But I'm telling you, if you get confident in money, you're going to be confident in love. If you get confident, like, you're going to grow your muscles because things are usually attached. We group things. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful. Honestly, and especially for people on the replay that are going to be watching this, I want to know. So you gotta commit to this. And some of you I work with, so we'll answer this privately. But you need to reach out to me on email or even in the comments in the course. What are you going to commit to for 30 days? Because it all starts there. Some of you may not even be able to even think about 90 days, but what can you commit to for 30 days? And if you don't exactly know, it doesn't matter. Pick something, start it. This stuff will come forward, and then you can start to get more clear. I can I love a good road trip. And I'll end with this. I love a good road trip. I've taken road trips where everything's planned, and I've taken road trips where the kids and I didn't know which hotel we were staying at. We just knew where we were going, but not any logistics. The kids would say it was slightly exciting and terrifying not knowing where we were going to stay. They preferred the plan, but you can't know, even if you've been on this road trip before, you cannot know what's going to come forward on that trip until it happens. You don't know if you're going to get flat tire. You can prepare all you want to not get one, but guess what? You don't know about flat tires if you're going to get one. You don't know if the heat's going to, all of a sudden you're going into a heat wave that you couldn't, or you're more tired than you thought and you thought you could drive 12 hours, but guess what? You can't. And so you have to pull over and get something else, halfway. You don't know what's going to come forward on that road trip externally, right? Or even internally half the time. But you plan what you can, and then you get on the trip and you just take it as it comes. And that is legit how change is. You plan what you can, and then every day you just take it as it comes. And when something throws you a curveball, you recognize, wow, I, didn't know I was going to be driving 5 hours today instead of at home working out in the gym. I couldn't work out today. And you recognize that. And if this is something that you do consistently, where you're driving 5 hours every week, then that's not the day to plan your gym day, right? As you get on this journey, you will start to recognize what, you can plan for a lot, but the reality is, you have to take it day by day. So there you go. Relief is good. Jenny, relief is good. Start there. And I really do want people to email me and let me know what they're committing to, because I think declaring it, saying it, emailing it, is very, very helpful in making that transition from research mode to implementing mode. All right. Well, that's it. I hope you guys, I mean, I would stay on here the 2 hours, but you're so welcome. I think there's a lot to think about, right? Especially those that are new to change. There's just a lot to think about. So. All right. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. You're welcome. I hope everybody has a fabulous day, and those on the replay, you're not off the hook. Tell me what you're committing to. It's very important. I'm not an accountability expert for nothing. I know what I'm talking about. You have to, this is the work of this part of the process. So it's good. All right. I'll talk to you later, and have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye.